When God created you, He didn't make a mistake. He didn't leave you lacking or incomplete. Everything you need to become everything He called you to be, He already placed inside of you. The strength, the courage, the vision, the discipline, the endurance, it's all there. You just have to activate it. Too many of us keep looking outside ourselves for what God already deposited within us. We keep waiting on people to validate our potential, to open doors for us, to confirm what God already told us. But the truth is, when God gives you a calling, He doesn't need a committee's approval. There comes a moment in life when you have to stop waiting on others and start depending on the God that lives within you. People will disappoint you, friends may change, support might disappear, but the power that God placed in your heart that can't be taken, He didn't say depend on them, He said depend on me, and I live in you. That means the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead is the same power that dwells in you. You are equipped. You are anointed. You are capable not because of what people think about you, but because of what God has already spoken over your life. See, too often we confuse faith with waiting. We sit back and say, I'm waiting on God, when God is really waiting on us. He already gave us the ability, the instruction, and the vision, but we're scared to move because we're too dependent on someone else's support. We want people to clap for us, to agree with our dream, to walk with us every step of the way. But sometimes God will isolate you to remind you you don't need a crowd to fulfill a calling. He'll strip away the support system, not to punish you, but to strengthen you. Because when you depend on others, your faith becomes fragile. But when you depend on God and the gifts He placed inside you, your faith becomes unshakable. You've got to reach a point where you stop saying, if they help me, I'll make it. No. You've got to say, even if nobody shows up, I'm still showing up. Because you're not moving by their permission, you're moving by His purpose. The moment you realize that, everything changes. You start walking differently. You start believing differently. You stop begging for affirmation because you already know who sent you. God didn't design you to live in dependency on people's opinions or their timing. He designed you to operate in alignment with His will. That means trusting the vision even when no one else understands it. It means working in silence when no one notices. It means believing in yourself when the world calls you crazy. Because sometimes God hides your greatness until you learn to trust Him more than them. Let me tell you something, when God gives you a dream, it's not up for negotiation. He doesn't need the world to agree with what He put in your heart. He just needs you to believe that you already have what it takes. Stop praying for new opportunities when you haven't even maximized the ones you have. Stop asking God to send help when He already gave you the tools. The blessing is not in what you're waiting for, it's in what you already carry. You've got to learn to depend on the source, not the system. The system may fail you, the people may forget you, but the source, God, never will. Depending on yourself through God doesn't mean arrogance, it means alignment. It means you recognize the divine power working in you and you choose to walk in it boldly. Because the truth is, no one can stop what God starts in your life unless you give them that power. Every time you doubt yourself, you're doubting what God placed in you. Every time you wait on others to move, you're delaying your destiny. So today, make a decision to trust the God in you, to believe that He made no mistakes when He called your name, to depend not on who walks with you, but on who walks in you. Because when you operate from that place of divine independence, you become unstoppable. When you depend on yourself through the strength of God, you stop chasing people's approval and start chasing purpose. You stop waiting for permission and start walking in power. Because the truth is, you've always had it. You've always been enough. You just needed to stop looking for it in others and start recognizing it in yourself. God already said, I gave you everything you need. The question is, when are you going to believe Him? So many people talk about faith like it's a feeling, but faith was never meant to be passive. Faith is movement. Faith is the decision to take the first step even when you can't see the staircase. Faith is not sitting and waiting for the perfect moment, it's trusting that God will meet you halfway once you move. Too often, we disguise fear as patience. We tell ourselves, I'm waiting on God, when the truth is, God is waiting on us to act on what He already promised. Faith without works is dead, not because faith isn't powerful, but because faith demands participation. If you say you believe that God has a plan for your life, then you've got to live like it. You've got to wake up every day and act like the vision He gave you is already in motion. because belief is not proven by words, it's proven by consistency. Faith is not about talking, it's about walking. You can pray all you want, but if you don't move your feet, you're still standing in the same place. God never called you to comfort, He called you to courage. And courage doesn't wait for the right conditions. Courage moves in obedience, even when it's uncomfortable. You see, real faith means trusting the process even when it doesn't look like progress. It means believing when the results don't match the promise. There are going to be seasons where everything in your life looks opposite of what God told you. You'll pray and see no change. You'll work hard and feel unseen. You'll believe and still battle doubt. But that's exactly where faith becomes real, in the tension between promise and performance. Because faith that only works when everything's working isn't faith, that's convenience. Faith that stands strong when nothing makes sense, that's conviction. Too many people want God to bless their dreams, but they never build the discipline to sustain them. Faith isn't sitting back and expecting miracles to fall from the sky. It's showing up every day like you know the miracle's already in motion. God rewards movement, He honors effort. When you take a step, He multiplies it. When you give your best, He adds the rest. But if you refuse to move, you limit what He can do through you. Because faith was never meant to replace work, it was meant to empower it. Sometimes we pray for doors to open while our hands are still in our pockets. We say we trust God, but we don't want to do the work. We want the blessing without the building, but that's not how the kingdom operates. God gives vision, but He expects you to bring the action. He gives purpose, but He demands participation. You can't just believe in the promise, you have to behave like it's already yours. You have to wake up, grind, prepare, study, and move with confidence. Because faith that sits still is just wishful thinking. Real faith says, even if I can't see it, I'll still sow into it. Real faith says, even if I fail, I'll keep showing up. Because God never asked for perfection, He asked for persistence. Every step you take in faith is a declaration that you trust His timing more than your feelings. That's why you can't let disappointment make you dormant. When the outcome doesn't come fast enough, keep moving. When the people don't believe in you, keep building. Because you're not working for their approval. You're working in obedience to the one who called you. Faith is not laziness. Faith is labor. Faith is showing up when it hurts. Faith is believing when no one claps. Faith is building when no one sees the vision but you. When you depend on the faith God gave you, it becomes fuel, not fantasy. It pushes you to keep going even when every reason says stop. Because deep down you know that obedience brings breakthrough. The problem is, too many people confuse waiting on God with avoiding responsibility. They want the blessing but not the burden. But God doesn't bless comfort, He blesses commitment. He blesses those who trust Him enough to take risks, to move, to stretch, to try again. Because movement is the language of faith. Every time you act in obedience, you're saying, God, I believe You'll meet me where I move. And He always does. So don't sit and wish for change, work for it. Don't just pray for open doors, prepare for them. Don't just talk about faith, walk it out. Because when your faith becomes action, your action becomes testimony. God never fails those who move with Him. And when you act on faith, heaven responds. Confidence is not something the world gives you, it's something you build from within. It's not built on applause, likes, or validation. It's built on truth, the truth of who you are and whose you are. When you let people define your worth, you hand them the power to destroy it. The same people who cheer for you today can turn their backs on you tomorrow. That's why you can't let your confidence come from the crowd. It has to come from the calling. So many people live like emotional puppets, moving when others praise them, stopping when others criticize them. But God didn't call you to be controlled by opinions. He called you to be anchored in purpose. If your confidence rises and falls with what others say, you'll never find peace because people are inconsistent. One day you're their hero, the next day you're their headline, and if your confidence is built on that, you'll always live in fear of losing it. True confidence comes from knowing that your value was set by God long before anyone had an opinion about you. Confidence built on compliments will collapse under silence. The moment the clapping stops, you'll start questioning if you're still enough. But when your confidence comes from conviction, when it's rooted in your faith, your effort, your growth, you don't need noise to know you're winning. You can be confident in the dark, confident in the struggle, confident in the process, Because your confidence isn't conditional, it's consistent. It's not based on who's watching, it's based on what you believe. There will be times when people won't understand your path. They'll doubt you, dismiss you, even talk about you, but their disbelief doesn't cancel your destiny. Just because they can't see what God put in you doesn't mean it isn't real. When you stop needing their approval, you start accessing your anointing. Because as long as you depend on others to build your confidence, you'll always be limited by their vision. Some people can't see past your past, but God sees your potential. So stop waiting for others to recognize your greatness before you start walking in it. Every day, you've got to wake up and affirm yourself. You've got to remind yourself, I'm built for this, I'm chosen for this, I'm enough for this. Because if you don't speak life into yourself, the world will speak doubt into you. You've got to become your own encourager, your own motivator, your own believer. It doesn't mean you don't need people, it means you don't depend on them for what only God can give you. People can inspire you, but they can't define you. They can support you, but they can't sustain you. That's why your confidence must be rooted deeper than popularity. It must be anchored in purpose. Some of you are holding back because you're scared of criticism. But understand this, every time you step into your calling, you threaten the comfort of people who never moved. That's why they talk, that's why they doubt. But their noise has nothing to do with your purpose. Confidence doesn't come from proving them wrong, it comes from proving yourself right. When you know who you are, you don't need to explain it to anyone. Silence becomes your response and progress becomes your proof. Confidence doesn't mean arrogance. It's not about thinking you're better, it's about knowing you're chosen. It's not pride, it's peace. It's the calm that says, even if no one believes in me, I still believe in what God placed inside me. When you have that kind of confidence, you walk differently, you talk differently, you carry yourself with quiet strength because you know you're backed by heaven. There will be seasons where no one claps for you, where no one recognizes your growth, where no one says, I'm proud of you. And in those moments, you've got to clap for yourself. You've got to look in the mirror and say, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm further than I was. And that's enough to keep going. Because confidence is not built overnight, it's built every day you choose to show up when you could have stayed down. Stop outsourcing your worth to people who can't even see their own. You don't need permission to be powerful. You don't need validation to be valuable. You just need faith to believe that what God started in you is still alive even when no one else sees it. Because the truth is, your confidence was never meant to come from them. It was meant to come from Him, and when you build it on that foundation, no rejection can shake it, no failure can break it, and no opinion can take it away. There will come a point in your journey where you'll have to walk a path that no one else understands. You'll look around for support, and the people who once said they'd always be there will be nowhere to be found. The calls stop coming, the applause fades, and suddenly, you're left standing in silence. But that silence is not abandonment, it's alignment. Because sometimes God has to pull you away from the crowd so you can finally hear His voice clearly. You can't hear divine direction in a room full of noise. You can't discover strength if you never had to stand alone. We love the idea of being chosen, but we hate the process that comes with it, because being chosen often means being isolated. It means walking through seasons where no one gets your vision, where people question your motives, where you start doubting yourself. But that's where God does His deepest work, in the lonely places, in the quiet places, in the unseen moments. When it's just you and Him, that's where your character is built. That's where your faith becomes more than words. You learn that standing alone doesn't mean being alone. It means being grounded in something greater than people's presence. Too many people mistake isolation for rejection, but sometimes God separates you to strengthen you. He removes the crutches so you can learn to stand on conviction. He removes the noise so you can recognize the voice that's been guiding you the whole time. See, if you always have someone to lean on, you'll never discover the power that's been living inside you. That's why certain people leave, not because they're bad, but because their assignment in your story is finished. You can't take everyone into your next season. Some people were only meant to clap for your beginning, not carry your breakthrough. Standing alone teaches you to depend on God in a way you never had to before. It reveals what's real. When you have no audience to impress, no crowd to please, no hand to hold, that's when authenticity shows up. That's when you realize that your worth was never based on who stood beside you, it was based on who stood within you. God will often strip you of earthly security so you can experience divine stability. He'll take away the people you thought you needed so you can finally see that He was the source all along. When you learn how to stand alone, you stop being afraid of being misunderstood. You stop needing approval to move forward. You stop chasing people who left because you realize if their absence could break you, their presence was limiting you. God doesn't remove people to hurt you. He removes them to grow you. Because there's a level of strength that can only be discovered in solitude. When you make peace with being alone, you become unstoppable, because no one can use loneliness against you anymore. In those quiet seasons when you feel like no one sees you, remember God does His best work in the dark. Seeds grow underground, diamonds are formed under pressure, warriors are built in silence. Just because no one is clapping doesn't mean you're not progressing. Sometimes your private battles are preparing you for public victories, and when that moment comes, you'll realize that every lonely night, every silent tear, every unanswered call was shaping something powerful inside you. Standing alone also teaches you discernment. You start recognizing who's truly for you and who was just comfortable around your light. You stop chasing company and start cherishing peace. You understand that not everyone who walks with you is walking for you. And once you learn that, you stop being desperate for connection and start being intentional with alignment. Because when God sends the right people, you'll know they won't compete with your calling, they'll complement it. Never confuse standing alone with walking without purpose. When God isolates you, it's not punishment, it's preparation. He's building your endurance, testing your faith, refining your vision. He's teaching you to depend on His voice over every other one. So when the stage lights come on and the world finally sees you, you won't crumble under pressure because you were built in the dark. You'll know that even when it was just you, it was never just you. God was there, so don't fear the lonely season, embrace it, walk through it with gratitude, because those moments are where strength is forged, clarity is born, and purpose is solidified. You may stand alone, but you'll never be alone. The one who called you will never leave you. He walks beside you, works through you, and lives within you. When you understand that truth, you'll stop looking for hands to hold and start trusting the hand that holds you. There comes a point in every person's journey when you have to decide what's going to drive your life purpose or people, because you can't serve both. When you depend on people, you're limited by their moods, their opinions, their insecurities, and their expectations. But when you depend on purpose, you're anchored in something that doesn't change when people do. Purpose doesn't disappear when the support fades. It doesn't shrink when others don't understand it. It's steady, it's divine, it's personal. God gave you that purpose not to please the crowd, but to glorify Him through your grind, your growth, and your grace. The problem is, too many of us have built our identity around being liked instead of being led. We measure our worth by people's reactions instead of God's direction. We get discouraged when we don't get validation, forgetting that purpose doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes walking in purpose looks like walking alone. Sometimes it looks like doing the right thing and not being recognized for it. But the reward isn't in being seen, it's in being steady. It's knowing that even if no one claps, heaven is watching and God is pleased. When you depend on people, your energy becomes unstable. You're up when they're cheering, down when they're silent. You're confident when they agree, confused when they don't. That's why so many people lose themselves chasing acceptance, because they forget that purpose was never meant to be a popularity contest. It's not about being approved, it's about being assigned. God doesn't need a committee to confirm your calling. He already validated you when He gave you breathe this morning. Depending on purpose means you move with conviction, not convenience. It means you don't quit when it gets hard, because you understand that purpose doesn't promise easy, it promises meaning. Purpose will cost you comfort, relationships, time, and sometimes your peace, but it will give you fulfillment that nothing else can. When you live by purpose, you stop asking, "Who's coming with me?" and start saying, "Whoever's meant will meet me there." Because you understand that not everyone can carry the weight of your calling. Some people are seasonal, but purpose is eternal. When you depend on people, you chase praise. When you depend on purpose, you chase progress. And there's a difference. Praise fades, progress lasts. Praise can flatter you, progress fulfills you. The world teaches us to live for recognition, but God teaches us to live for responsibility. Purpose is not about what you get from it, it's about what you give through it. It's waking up every day and saying, Lord, use me how you see fit. It's realizing that even if the world never says thank you, you still did what you were sent here to do. Depending on purpose will stretch you. It'll take you places where comfort won't follow. It'll ask you to keep showing up when you don't feel like it, to stay disciplined when no one's watching, to forgive when it hurts, and to keep believing when it doesn't make sense. Because purpose doesn't live in your emotions, it lives in your obedience. And when you start prioritizing obedience over opinion, that's when you start walking in real power. Sometimes people won't understand why you move the way you move, why you say no to certain things, why you protect your peace so fiercely, and that's okay. They're not supposed to understand your assignment because it wasn't given to them. That's why depending on people is dangerous. They can only see from their level, but purpose sees from God's level. It sees the bigger picture. It knows what you're being prepared for even when you don't. That's why you can't abandon your purpose just because it's uncomfortable. You can't let temporary emotions ruin an eternal mission. At the end of the day, people can walk with you, pray for you, and support you, but they can't live your purpose for you. Only you can do that. You have to carry it, nurture it, protect it, and fight for it. Purpose is not just what you do, it's who you are becoming through what you do. And when you depend on that, you start living with a kind of peace that no applause can replace. So stop chasing people who don't see your value. Stop waiting for validation from voices that don't understand your vision. Depend on purpose, because when you depend on purpose, you depend on God, and He never fails. The right people, the right opportunities, the right moments, they'll all find you when you stay focused on what He placed inside you. Purpose doesn't need popularity, it just needs perseverance. When you anchor your life in that truth, you stop being distracted by opinions and start being directed by destiny. And that's when you become unstoppable, not because people believe in you, but because you finally believe in the reason God created you.